Hey guys, this is your video for the lesson 3B-3 over Y-Intercept. So this is the first lesson of the pathway. You have notes that look like these to go along with it. These will be glued on separate pages in your journal. However, I do want you to go ahead and write all this information on the top of the page that has the graphs paper on it, because this is kind of like the introduction to the Y-Intercept. The Y-Intercept is something important. It has to do with where the line on the graph crosses the y-axis. So we were used to graphs looking like this, going straight through the origin and going straight up. We're still going to deal with lines. However, they're just not going to go through the origin all the time. Sometimes they're going to go through places above the origin or even below the origin. And we're going to try to figure out what the y-intercept is. So just to clarify, where the line crosses the graph on the y-axis is the line that goes straight up and down. So wherever the line crosses that straight up and down line is our y-axis. Is our y-axis. I'm going to talk to you about how to find the y-axis through a table. All right, here we go. Some of these will be given to you to do on your own. So let's zoom into the graphs page and let's find the y-intercept from a graph. Remember, I said that it is where the line crosses the y-axis. I am going to do this page while you are going to do this page, all right? So first of all, it's very important to figure out where the y-axis even is. Actually, I'm gonna do 3. I'm gonna do 1, 2, and 3, and you're gonna do 4, 5, and 6, okay? So first of all, we have to figure out what the y-axis even is. The y-axis is this axis here. It is very important because you don't need to use the other axis, you will not be finding the right answer. So it actually is way easier than it sounds. You're just finding this line and this line where they cross. They cross right there, and they cross at the 2. This is the 2 on the y-axis, which means that the y-intercept is 2. We call the y-intercept B. Not too sure why they picked B for y-intercept, like the abbreviated version of it. But they do. So if you ever see me saying B equals 2, I'm talking about the y-intercept. It can also be written represented as a coordinate, which would be 0, 2. That is the coordinate for the dot that I just drew. Okay, so let's talk about number 2. First, we got to locate the y-axis, which is here. Pretty simple. Then we find where the line that they graphed crosses that y-axis, which is up here. That is actually at positive 2. Ooh, that is I'm so glad I said that because that one is a negative 2. So glad I said that. Remember that the numbers above on the y-axis are positive, and then going down, they're counting negatively. So these are negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so that means this y-intercept is at positive 2. This y-intercept was at negative 2. It doesn't really matter about which way the graph goes. It's just the cross point. So I'm going to go ahead and on this one, write down the word y-intercept. It doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of showing different ways that you could write this. Y-intercept is 2, which again is the coordinate 0, 2. Remember, this one was negative. This one was positive. All right, let's do one more on the graph. Remember, you find the y-intercept or y-axis first. Then you look where the line crosses the y-axis, and it doesn't actually cross until way down here, which is at the negative 5. So negative 5 is our y-intercept. Remember, I put B just because that's the letter they like to use. I'm so sorry you couldn't see that, but I'm sure you might have found it at the very bottom of your paper. That is where they cross. So the coordinate for this would have been 0, 5. The coordinates are important because when we get to tables here in a second, which I'm about to move to, we're going to be able to find a specific coordinate like these that are in our tables. Computer's making noises. Whenever we look for the coordinate with the x as a 0, that number is our y-intercept. So I wanted to show you the coordinates when I graphed them so that it's going to be a lot easier for us to find y-intercepts on a table. So go to your table page. Remember, 4, 5, and 6 are yours to do for me to check in a little bit. Let's move on to the tables page and let's try to figure out where the y-intercept would be. So I could take a graph paper and go graph all these coordinates down here. Remember, the first column is x and the second column is always y. Same like right here, and again here, x and y. I could go graph these if I really wanted to. However, I don't want to. So what I'm going to do is find the y-intercept by using that coordinate thing that I was talking about. Remember, the x value is 0. Whenever the x value is 0, I am able to find it super easy. So go ahead and put x value equals 0 at the top of your paper. Once you find that coordinate, for instance, this one right here, this x value is 0. When you find that, you find the y-intercept. So this one has a y-intercept of 2. I just abbreviated y-intercept just a little bit. All right, what happens whenever you don't have a 0 on the table? You make it. So if this is counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I know pretty easily that right above here should have been 0. And if I continued the pattern on this side, on the x side, I would need to do the same thing on the y side. So I kind of see what it's counting by, and it's going to be nice and easy since these are counting up by 1. 250 to 500 is going up 250. So this must have been at 0 if I were counting down 250 from 250. This is the y-intercept right here. It just so happens that this one is the origin. So this one did look like a graph that looks like that, which just means that the 0 is our y-intercept. All right, let's go look at number 3. Remember, I'm looking for x to be 0, which I found it, and that means that my y-intercept is -1. Pretty easy on those, just to find that really quick. And then you have something a little bit more difficult, like this table right here, where you're going to have to find a pattern to kind of see how things are going up. And the ugly part about this one is these numbers are going up by 3s and not 1s, to where it's going to be nice for us to easy to count. I'm going to do something a little bit special on this one, and I'm going to create the table right next to it, just a little bit, just to kind of like, blow it up a little bit. So I'm going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the only numbers I have for this 2 is 12, and for the 5 is 30. So I got to figure out what it was counting by and how can I fill in these gaps. So from 12 to 30, that is going up by, let's see, 18. So if I were counting by 3s, I needed to figure out 18. Let's see. So I kind of have to use this pattern, like, mindset to figure this stuff out. So let's kind of take a guess here. If I went up to 20, 25, those wouldn't be a perfect little pattern. If I went up to, let's say, 18, so when going up by 6, I could do 18. So from 12 to 18 was 6. From 18 to 24 would be 6. And from 24 to 30 would be 6. So perfect. I figured it out. My pattern was going by 6s. So it's going to take some brain power to figure out your pattern. And going from 12 down to 1, from 12 to this spot right here, going down 6 would be 6. And from here down 6 would be 0. So again, I have the origin as my y-intercept. So 0 was my y-intercept. Be careful on some of the graphs on the bottom. Be careful on some of the graphs on the bottom. These 3 you have to do to show me that you know how to find the y-intercept. Remember, the x value has the 0. So I might have thrown in a trick problem and gave you a y value of 0. That is not the y-intercept. That's actually called the x-intercept. But we don't have to worry about those. We don't worry about those in the 8th grade math. We worry about those later. So for right now, we're just finding the y-intercept where x is 0, or if it were graphing, where the line crosses the y-axis. And you find the number, and that's it. There's really no math really to be done. You're just finding the number